Welcome to today's Ask the Expert session. My name is Kelly Kaufman. I am a customer of ServiceNow. I've been a customer since the Calgary-Dublin version, and actually at two different employers. And I'm going to be the moderator for today's session. And I like to do things a little bit different. As opposed to having one expert speak the whole time, I like to get a few different heavy user customers to present what they're doing in ServiceNow on one specific topic. So today's topic is on project and portfolio dashboards and status reporting. These topics tend to be ones that are completely selfishly chosen. They're ones I find interesting and would really love to see what other customers are doing in the system. And so we have two presenters today, Etta and Cindy, and they're going to present their solutions of how they do project and portfolio dashboard and status reporting. And they're going to let you know which version they're on, what they've done to set it up, and how it's working for them to meet their business needs at their customers. And I am very, very excited to hear this topic and see how these different customers are setting up the system. So we're going to do quick introductions of both Etta and Cindy, and we're going to end with Q&A. Now, please post any questions that you have on the community thread that has this presentation that you use to get onto the presentation, and we'll be monitoring that thread during this presentation, and we'll try to answer those questions either during this or after this presentation. And for those of you attending live, this will be available immediately after the end of the presentation via a recording. Let us start with the introductions. Etta Wilson, you may recognize her name from the last couple of knowledge sessions, the last one in Vegas, where she presented on a panel and I think had her own presentation as well. And she was working at CareFusion, and since we had asked her to do this presentation, has left CareFusion and started her own company. And she has 27 years of experience leading up to this, is a ServiceNow super user, especially in the PPM community. I'm not going to read all of this. She can introduce herself a little bit more. But we are really excited to have Etta continue to be involved in the PPM community with this presentation. And our second presenter is Cindy Perkins, who's also deeply experienced in technology and business and PPM as well. And she's with Florida Virtual School, and she'll be in their ServiceNow incidents, showing you how they have it set up. And Cindy is one of our super users in PPM, PPS as well, and we are super excited for Cindy to join us in this experts panel presentation. Let's go ahead and dig in. We're going to start off with Etta Wilson and then proceed to Cindy with their demos. Please hand this over to Etta.
Good morning, everyone. So I am going to share and then minimize Google Hangout and then completely minimize it. Okay, so as Kelly stated, I was actually a customer for about 2.5 years, came in the Calgary release, have been a design partner with ServiceNow from the Calgary release on, and then what happened was there was an acquisition and my position changed on the ServiceNow platform, so I decided to start my own company, specializing in the project portfolio space, because I realized that there's a lot of partners out there, even though they all do ITSM, very few just specialize in the project portfolio space. So our topic today, what we're talking about, is status reports. And one of the things that I always look at from an architecture standpoint is I want to always see like what is in the platform available for me to use. And on the status report is we all have to do our status reports for projects every week or month, you know, weekly, monthly, or however it happens. I wanted to be able to minimize the amount of time that I had for inputting, noting that I'm already monitoring my project. So it was actually my old VP at CareFusion that helped me visualize this status report that we ended up doing. And even though I created this after I left CareFusion, he was really the inspiration of this, because what had happened was CareFusion had moved from ServiceNow to using Microsoft, and they were sending him like these 14-page status reports for each of the projects, and he was like, I got like 100 projects, how do I read all this? And so that's actually how this all started. And so, as we know, we have portfolios in ServiceNow. From the ServiceNow portfolio, I can actually drill into each of the portfolios. So portfolio can actually be by, IT, finance, or they can be by line of business, something like that as well. So then once I'm in the status report, I can go to portfolio status, and now all of a sudden I see the dashboard that gives me all the portfolio status. I picked this view because when we're managing projects, it's really all about mitigating risk. If it's low risk, not that I would only have one task on my project, but if my risk is really, really low and I'm just doing small things, I may have just a few tasks. If it's high risk, I may have more tasks. But what I like about what is in portfolio out of the box is it gives you risk, scope, cost, and staff, which is resource. Then you can do your estimated cost, your actual cost, and then your complete, estimate complete. So as a PM, what I want to be able to do is I want to be able to drill into one of these and say, okay, here is my status for the week. I've got my project manager, start and end, all the rest of the pieces.
Real quickly, Etta, are you sharing your screen?
Yes, I hope so.
Oh, can you
Oh
try
my
your
goodness.
share again? That's all right.
Don't say that. Okay, hold on. Let me go back to share. It says share screen. It says you are presenting to everyone. Kelly, can you see me?
I can see you, but not your screen right now.
Oh my gosh.
So if you go to the green screen share link on the upper left.
Yeah. Okay, hold on. What about this one? Does that show everything?
It is now showing your desktop or your Google Hangouts tab.
So all this time I've been yabbing.
That's okay. I don't think we need to see up until this point. We're good. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. So everybody can see now. Okay, cool. Sorry about that, and thank you for letting me know that I've been talking this whole time and you haven't seen my screen. So actually what I want to do is let me go back to when you define your portfolios in portfolio. I'm actually going to go into the finance portfolio, and it's from the portfolio that we're doing status. So we've got project status. So what's interesting about this is that this is the status for what they did in this view is they combine portfolio and project in one view, and then you can pull in whatever information you needed. So we pulled in plan start, planned end, risk, scope, cost, staff, actual cost, estimated cost, and percent complete. Okay, so when we actually go into a particular project, what we did is we brought in the project manager, again, plan start and end, actuals, the percent complete, and then risk is coming from the project. Scope, cost, and staff are subjective on this. They're not coming from the actual project because currently out of the box, there really isn't anything over to equate to, what scope is, what cost is, and what staff is, but that's not to say that you can't do that. And then we pull over the budget cost, which is actually coming from when we started this in demand. So when you did your high level of effort in demand, it was $145,000. Since then, you've made some adjustments in the project, and so now it's $150,000, and you've done time cards so far, so your actual cost is $150,000. And then right now on this one, you've got your accomplished activities and your planned activities. So this could be, you know, what we did last week, what we did this week, or any combination of above. So these two are custom fields. All of the rest of these are being pulled directly from project. So what happens is when the PM first comes into it, the first thing they do is to go ahead and update the project. And what this will do is any changes that happen on the project will then pull over. So it will update your start and end date, your actuals, your risk, your budget cost. Budget will be the same, but estimated cost and actual cost will also update if there was any changes. Then you can go ahead and put in any comments for risk, scope, cost, staff. I purposely didn't put in milestones. You could, because it's there. So the nice thing is because this is both the project and the portfolio fields, you can make this form anything you want to. And then after you are ready to go ahead and generate your status report for the week, you basically just say, create status report. And it creates it. So we're now over to the status report. It pulls in everything that you would have put on the other side. And notice I didn't put anything in, but it would have pulled everything over. The other thing it does is project risk and issues are also here so that you have it. So the nice thing about this is that if you wanted to send out just a quick, export and PDF, you could. Okay. And it would have downloaded. And of course, during live TV, it doesn't work. Okay, not sure why it's not downloading, but it does actually work. So on the export, like I said, you can export, you can go to PDF, landscape, portrait, and, oh, there we go. Sorry about that. It was my screen. And it will actually bring in all the pieces of the status report for you. In addition to, it will also bring in the pieces from your issues and risks on the bottom. So it does that out of the box. Okay? So let's go over and actually take a look at the project. So what you'll actually see on the project then is every week that you do your status report or whatever, if it's, you're not, I hope nobody's doing daily status reports, but if you were, then you could change that as well. But what happens is there's a tab down here in the project itself called Project Status Reports, and that's where this is held. So we're using the portfolio view to basically take that snapshot of the project at any given time, and then it copies over to here. And again, it gives you the risk and issues.
Etta, does this mean that the project has to be part of a portfolio?
It does have to be part of a portfolio, but having said that, you can create from the project. It just means that you got to fill in all the information.
No problem. So with this solution, you could just automatically have all of your projects assigned to one standard portfolio until you're ready to really start using portfolios.
Yes. So from here, and that's actually a really good point, Kelly. So we still would have pulled risk from here, but then this would have still been subjective to what you would have put in, and then you would have to fill out the rest of it. But good point on that. Very good point on that. Just leave that. So then the other thing that does is back to my old VP of the Enterprise PMO. They really want to see things at a high level. Because they've got the entire PMO to deal with, right? And so you want to be from a CIO level, from a VP of the Enterprise PMO or a VP of the PMO. Here's your high level of cost, resource, and scope. And so if something is green, chances are, even though you did a wonderful job on your status report, they're probably not going to look at it. So I'm going to like click that out. And even on all these, I'm just going to click it out. Click it out. And then what you're left with is any projects that are, from a cost perspective, resource, and scope, that are really in yellow and red. And those are the items that I really want to, drill into. So on the finance side, if I wanted to be able to drill into, okay, these are the things that are finance, oh my goodness, it's only one, that's good. So then I can directly click in to that status report, and then I can see all the details of it. So that's actually how I ended up approaching it, so that from a PM perspective, pull everything from the project, put in what you did last week, this week, and because you have brought portfolio and project fields, if you wanted to, based on your organization and the kind of, fields you want to add, but you want one centralized place to be able to put everything and then to be able to present it up, at the portfolio level. So that is it on that. So I think that's it.
Etta, I have a question from the community about how you send status reports. So I saw that you export your report to PDF. Then do you email that status report, or do people run reports against the fields on that status report and have them auto-emailed out to stakeholders?
So it's interesting that you say that, and thank you for that question. So here's what we're doing. When we're in demand and we define that stakeholder list, we put a stakeholder type on that list. And then when the demand is approved, we bring that stakeholder list over to the project. And it's that stakeholder list that determines who gets the email on the project status report. And so on the list, if you've defined that, the product owner and the product sponsor, they're the ones that receive the status report, then they get a link to basically bring them back to the status report. But it's still, so currently, the way we've had it, they still get to see this view. We haven't gotten into the point where if you're the, VP of finance or you're the product owner of finance where you just see this, everybody comes back to the same dashboard. And so what we're actually planning in the future is to be able to, when you click on this, it's actually going to display everything down here below. And I'll give you another work, or the plan anyway. So out of the box, and actually we found out this is actually demo data. When you click on the project timelines, so here's your upper, so think of this as your status report in your, your RAG, your red, yellow, green. So when you click on, let's say this was the green, then below it updates, below. So the goal is to, as you update it, you have it here so you'll be able to see everything. Okay? Hope that answered the question.
Great, and I did not see any other questions on the community. Lisa, did you?
No, I have not. Thank you. Please continue.
Perfect.
Okay.
Well, thank you, everyone.
Thank you. And Etta, I believe that in a little bit of time you will be placing the code for this out on Share. Is that correct?
That is absolutely correct. Because so what's nice about this is that the majority of this is actually functionality that is in the out-of-the-box functionality. The only thing we did was just enhance it a little bit. So we'll go ahead and put it together, get it documented, and we'll also give a couple examples. So, if you want to use the examples and start from there, you can, or you can start from scratch. But we're using the portfolio and the project tables, pulling those in and basically adding whatever custom fields. Like, we have the status, this is what we did last week, this is what we're going to do this week, whatever you want to label that. And so you'll have all that. So yes. We'll be posting it on Share.
Great. Thank you so much for sharing with the community. We really appreciate that.
Always, always.
And thank you for presenting. Now let's hand this over to Cindy.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can hear you,
Yes.
but I do not see your screen yet.
Okay. How about now?
Yes, I can see your ServiceNow screen. Thank you.
Wonderful. Good morning or afternoon, everyone. So a little background on Florida Virtual School. We went live with ServiceNow in March of 2014 with Incident. And then a little later, about August, we decided to implement the project portfolio management suite. And we are on Fuji, so I'm going to share that with you today. So our need for status reporting, we had a lot of people on our project teams that needed to see the status of the project, but didn't have access to ServiceNow. So we wanted to create something that we could actually send. So I'm going to go into we created a little selection here of my projects in progress, compact view. The compact view is just to stop the scrolling that you have to do sometimes in ServiceNow. So I'm going to show you what we do for our status reporting. A little more background. We would have the project managers update their status in ServiceNow for the portfolio reporting, but then we would have them update something else. Actually, it was a PowerPoint slide to send out as their status report. So we said, well, geez, there has to be a better way. We have all this information in ServiceNow. So that's kind of what drove us here. So what you see in front of you, a lot of this here at the top, I think is out of the box. We did add some other dates over here, like requested delivery, committed, and actual delivery date. And the PM % complete is because we're not using the scheduling portion of ServiceNow, so we kind of calculate that outside of ServiceNow using Microsoft Project. So then we created some tabs down here, and we did our little gap analysis to see what we needed. So this is a typical what you would want on a project status, like this, the current status summary, any issues of risk, progress accomplishments, kind of high level, and this will make more sense when you see it actually sent. We did add, as an example down here, schedule risk. We could put on track is green, at risk is yellow, off track is red, and you'll see that when the report comes out. So we would, whenever you have an issue, like if my schedule happens to be at risk, it's not really, but for the sake of the demonstration, I added some things here. You could add a comment as to why. So those are what you see there. And then we also wanted to track the budget. So we added a budget tab. So if you follow the project management process, in the beginning you kind of request what you think you're going to need as a budget, then you baseline it, and then you track your actuals. So what we do here, when an invoice comes in, you would update your expended, and then the ServiceNow calculates it. You can also see over here to the right, we've got percentage of the budget. We added that. Estimate at completion. Again, this is if you had a problem along the project and you had to increase your external spend, you would update it here, and then you would be able to track what you expect your cost to be at completion, and then any variance down here at the bottom. And again, that'll come out on the status report.
Cindy, for these internal costs, are those manual at this point for Florida Virtual School, or do you have those tied with hours?
They're manual. We have a spreadsheet that we kind of do that with, so they are tied to hours, but it is all manual and then entered in here. That answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you. I can see customers reaching the point of charging time and then having that pull into the internal costs on that form. That would be a really cool feature for a next step.
Yeah, we do use time card, but we haven't started with the resource module yet. Major milestones, we had the PMs kind of select like 5 milestones and then list them here. So you can, we try to keep them high level, so this would be like the stages pretty much if you're doing an upgrade. And again here, you can say if it's on track, at risk, off track, and add a comment. So you would just type that in. Of course, click save. And I can't spell. So if after you've updated your schedule, or your status and everything on here, you would come over here and click send weekly status report. You can add if you want. You could send out to your whole team here. You can add them. I'm going to add our system admin. And when you click this send weekly status report, you should get it in your inbox. And what we created this with was actually we created a notification based on a field change, so you kind of have to hit save twice. I'm going to go to my Outlook. I don't know if I have one, if we'll wait for one, but here's an example of what it comes in to the person receiving it, the recipient. So you'll notice it has the logo. We did unfortunately fortunately make this look a little bit like our PowerPoint, but you can see here's the scope where it was on track, schedule, yellow at risk, and then red shows that it's, kind of stopped. There's progress, accomplishments, immediate next steps, major milestone table, and then the budget status.
That's a really cool email. So that's great where no matter what type of role a person has in the system, they can get this email with the project status.
Exactly. And that's why we went down this path. So yeah, this could be your whole team.
So you're determining the team members that actually get the status report.
Correct.
But I like it. Nice status report.
Thank you. Yeah, basically.
You know what's interesting on this? Do you guys use demand?
Yeah, we just started.
So you know what's interesting? Just to give you an idea, the stakeholders that you define in demand for the different portfolios are really the stakeholders that this status report would go to. So update your email notifications to those stakeholders so that you don't have like 2 places to go update.
Yeah, that would be real nice. I'll have to look at that.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's pretty much it. I'm trying to think. Oh, we have there's other times we send different pieces of this report, and that is basically all those are. You just check them and it works the same way.
I do have a question on the community about what roles can see this status report. First of all, do you have the expectation of people going in and physically looking at the status report as opposed to relying on the email?
We do not. We did the email because we have people that wanted to see the status report that don't have access to this portion of ServiceNow.
Got it. So if people did want to go in and look at the status report, what roles would they need to be able to do that?
We have a project manager role.
That would need to see it. Okay, so any ITIL user would not be able to see that, correct?
No, correct.
Okay. And I think that was specifically the question on the community. And how about you, Etta? What role is needed to see the status information in your system?
So you don't actually need a role, because if you think about it, it's the person who submitted the idea to start with, like way back in demand. They still want to be able to get that status, so you still need to figure out a way to get that to them. So it really is just an update of status, not necessarily a role.
But to be able to go in ServiceNow and look at the status,
So what they do is you bring those fields over to IDEA.
Oh, I understand. Okay.
Yes. Yeah, feed those back to when you go to My Idea in ServiceNow for the person who submitted the initial request. You got to bring that stuff back so that they can see everything that's going on. So if they need additional information, yes, you've got to go ahead and enable a role for them. But the basic information for status information, you shouldn't have to have a role, because in My Ideas, that's the whole purpose. I want to see what's the status of my idea.
Got it. That's a creative use of idea. I didn't recognize when you first went through that that's the module that you had used for that. So thank you,
Yeah.
thank you for helping me understand that.
Yeah, and you so what's interesting is when it was, well, let me go back a couple, Eureka, I think it was Eureka, when there was no idea, we did it in the demand application where we fed back status to demand so that the end user, as a user, could actually see high-level status. Then when Fuji came along and we now had the ideal module, then it basically shifted to idea. So there's got to be a place in the system where you're just asking for status. You're not trying to drill down, change anything, or anything like that. You want a place to basically get status. You got to be able to feedback that without having to introduce a role just for feedback.
Got it. Thank you. Back to you, Cindy. Sorry about the interruption.
Oh, no, it's fine. That is pretty much what I wanted to share with everyone. Oh, and then what we do with this status, because obviously it's a point in time, we make a PDF print of it and share it or put it on SharePoint.
Got it. But you could also attach it to the project if you desired.
That's true. Very good point. Yep.
Great. I did the same thing back in, I think, Dublin or Eureka version of ServiceNow at my prior employer. We had it, so we saved the form as PDF and then attached it every week to the project.
Good idea. It's always interesting to learn how
So
other people
can I share something with you guys?
Yeah.
So I tell you why we chose not to save it as a PDF, and this is just from a compliance standpoint. From a compliance standpoint, we had a person on the team that anytime there was an actual document, because they had a document management system, they wanted to know what documents are you creating. It was like, we're not creating any documents. So when I went through the status report, that kind of snapshot in time where it creates that snapshot, but if you think about it, it's still not an actual document unless you determine that you want to put it in PDF format. So because you have a lot of companies that still aren't using like knowledge or document management, they're still using open text, SharePoint, something like that. If you have those kind of requirements, know that yes, you can share it in your SharePoint, your open text, or whatever document management system you use, that it's not an actual document in ServiceNow, so you don't have dupes. You don't want the duplicate.
Got it. Thank you. I did not see any other questions on the community. Lisa, did you see any additional questions?
No, but we can always answer them after the fact on the community. So thanks.
Perfect. So we'll monitor that. Thank you both, Etta and Cindy, for your time in getting your demo together and taking the time to do the demo today. You both are rock stars, and we really appreciate you sharing your solution knowledge. I personally really enjoy seeing how different customers set up ServiceNow to do almost the same thing. That's really an attestation to how flexible the system is to configure it in different ways to do the same thing. So I find it very helpful. And thank you also, Etta, for sharing your code on Share when you have time to do that in the next couple of weeks. As Lisa mentioned, I've been monitoring the questions out in the community post for this, and we'll keep monitoring the questions over the next couple of days and weeks and answering those as they come through. And again, for those attending live, the recording is available. Thank you again, Etta and Cindy, for your time, and everybody, hope to see you on the community.
Thank you so much.
Have a great day, everybody.
You too.